Everyone just joining, we're going to give it one more minute for people to arrive and transition. I think we reached our magic number. It's a minute past, so we're going to get started. I hope everyone can hear me. If you can, hear me, give me a thumbs up in the chat function. First, I want to say thank you for everyone joining today. Welcome to my home, our new reality, and thank you again for inviting me into your home today. A lot to talk about, but first we jump in. Just some quick reminders as people join. You will be muted. Throughout the conversation, feel free to put your chats in the chat function. We have a team of Pixar Global employees monitoring the chat function, and we'll have some time afterwards to review some of those questions. But if you don't have time, feel free to reach out to us. Please contact us. So a lot to get through in an hour, and I know there's a lot of materials and webinars out there, and we want to make this as valuable and useful to everyone on the line. So feel free to reach out with your questions. We're going to talk a little bit about our social mission surveys today. We're going to have a great conversation with our colleagues from Johnson & Johnson. We're going to talk a little bit about Virtual Pro Bono, how to build and adapt those programs, and some exciting announcements regarding some of our challenge initiatives. So presenters today, hi, my name is Gavin Seplak. I am the Senior Vice President at Pixar Global. We have Jasenia Ramos from Johnson & Johnson, who's a Global Community Impact Senior Manager, and Rene Lo Perez, who's Pixar Global's Vice President of Program Innovation. So just quickly on Pixar Global, some of you might know who we are. Some of you have seen our social media out there, but we're an organization based in Washington, D.C. For around 30 years, we've been operating in over 100 countries, and our real mission is to bring the private sector to bear and their resources and their talent to help build resilient communities and tackle some of the world's solvable problems. Go Pro Bono, and that's probably the main reason we're on the call today, is how to engage, how to activate the human potential of your corporations through Go Pro Bono. These programs are corporate-sponsored initiatives that unlock the talent and are aligned to a company's broader strategy. They bring the professional skill sets to host organizations, which could be nonprofits, social enterprises, or government entities. So a quick poll to get things started and get the blood flowing. And I feel like this is pretty straightforward in your GoToWebinar functions here. But the question is, what kind of support will be most beneficial as your organization seeks to be more resilient and mitigate future disruptions? So the poll's in progress. We'll give it a minute or two. Great. I think we'll move on from there, and I think we should be able to see the results, or those will come in now. So here are the results. Great strategic planning, 50%, leadership, mentor, and board service. That's great to hear. Financial modeling, sustained service delivery, and that is something that we've heard quite a bit. And that really leads us into some exciting data that we've recently received from some of our nonprofit partners. So let's go into that. So what do social mission organizations need now? So I want to quickly talk about some of the findings that we've learned through what we're calling COVID-19 Social Sector Impact Survey. We've worked with a number of organizations around the world, and we recently surveyed them, receiving 116 responses across 40 countries. And these organizations consist of nonprofits, social enterprises, and foundations. And when we surveyed the organizations, we were really targeting to learn more about 3 different categories. How are they absorbing, or their ability to operate in light of the COVID-19 pandemic? Understanding a little bit more how are they adopting, from a medium-term ability to make changes to operate sustainability through this, through the duration of this pandemic. And learn a little bit more about how they're transforming their long-term ability to learn from, and harness the effects of the COVID-19 challenge. How can they innovate, change, and pivot during this time? So I want to share some of the results. Some of the questions we asked is, what degree has COVID presented challenges to the organization? Not surprising, 74% have expressed that they've had significant challenges. To what degree is your organization currently operating? A majority, you can see, have significantly reduced sales service provisions. Some have moderately reduced. Some are maintaining, and some have obviously been closing, are non-operational. We also asked, what changes are they making? They're making changes to their products and service offerings, whether it's offering those virtually or pivoting to meet this new reality. A lot of organizations, for obvious reasons, are looking for grants because their services and their markets are impacted. Hiring freezes, salary reductions, unfortunately laying off employees, and so on. And what are the areas in which COVID-19 is impacting organizations to the greatest extent? Operations and production. Obviously we're all working from home, and if it's, that could have an impact on your operations and your services, financial planning, forecasting the future there, stakeholder partnerships, strategy and planning. Communication and ICT has also come up quite a bit through our conversations and through our survey results. We're also seeing some of the top needs. And I want to point this out because, I think this leads great into our next conversation with Jasenia from Johnson & Johnson, because we're seeing a lot of organizations still have needs during this time. They are losing some of their in-person volunteer engagements, but there's still an opportunity for virtual engagements. So approximately 1 in 4 respondents indicated they would like Go Pro Bono assistance in those areas that we noted. They are transitioning to virtual products and service delivery. Other significant needs: strategic planning, communications, and adapting internal operations to be able to work from home. 59% of respondents agree or strongly agree that their Go Pro Bono experience better prepared them for their current challenges presented by COVID-19. That was really great to see. We understand that engaging corporate employees, giving them the ability to assist organizations like that we've surveyed, or nonprofits or social institutions, can help better prepare them for unforeseen circumstances, whether it's COVID-19 or any other situations we see in the future. Just a quick reminder before we jump into some Q&A with Jasenia, please feel free to plug in your chats, your questions into the chat function there, and we will be answering those towards the end of the call. So firstly, I would like to introduce Jasenia. I believe she is also on video. Good morning, Jasenia. How are you doing?
Good morning. Great, thanks. How are you?
It's great to see someone else on this, because it's kind of talking to a black hole to some extent. It's just me and my favorite donkey in the background, but I really appreciate you joining today to come and share your experiences with on J&J's Global Pro Bono program. To get things started, I think you do a much better job than I can of introducing yourself. What is your role at J&J? Talking a little bit about what is J&J's Go Pro Bono program.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Justenia Ramos and I am the Senior Manager of Employee Engagement for Johnson & Johnson with principal responsibility for North America, but as we are a global company, our programs do go global, and so a lot of our programs really do touch all of our employees across the various regions. So, the main thing for us within J&J is engaging employees in the spirit of volunteerism. We're very blessed that our company has employees that enjoy volunteering and seek to volunteer in many ways. And so we've just been on a mission over the last few years to really try to engage them in different ways, show them how volunteering doesn't just have to be hands-on and in person, but how it could also be virtual or in person using your skills, and thus, the transition to pro bono. So one of the programs that we work with Pixar Global on is our Global Pro Bono program, which is a 4-week fully immersive program where we bring employees principally from North America and Latin America, but we've actually opened up to our EMEA employees this year. We bring them together to serve our nonprofit partners using their skills that they use every day on the job. So whether it's finance skills, marketing, communications, HR, the employees brings those skills to our nonprofit partners. So, we're really excited about the opportunity to continue doing that in light of current circumstances.
Great, thank you so much. And I remember the planning for the program this year when we were looking at, where to send teams in North America and, Detroit, New Orleans, and then also Ottawa, right? I think we finally nailed those down. But yeah, I have a bunch of questions, and I think it's great to get your perspective and, understand a little bit more of the process around these decisions. So, I mentioned those 3 locations. They were all in-person programs. We had employees, as you mentioned, going there in person. But recently you made the transition and the decision to, move them to a virtual format, right? I guess one of the biggest questions I have, and I think it would be interesting for everyone to understand, is why are you taking that initiative now to transition those programs where, even some of those are in September, October timeframe. So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we actually had decided that we would have teams in Mexico City and in Detroit in the April-May timeframe, and then in Ottawa in the September timeframe. And so when everything started with the pandemic, we started looking at things and then quickly realized that we would have to shift our April-May programs to September. So that's the first thing we did. We can call it postpone those programs, thinking that they might still be in person to a later time frame. And we made that decision pretty quickly, even before things started shutting down. And, there was a lot of thought behind that, but the main thing was, really thinking about employee safety of our nonprofit partners, a lot of uncertainty. And so we've really, taken that into consideration as we decided to shift things towards the end of the year. But as you mentioned, even with that, we still decided to take our September programs and make them virtual. So actually, we will not be having any in-person programs this year. Why is that? I wish we had a crystal ball to really determine what the future holds, but there's still so much uncertainty out there. Yeah. And with that uncertainty, there's a lot of change that needs to take place. And what we don't want to happen is that we find ourselves in a position in September where things have not reopened, and then we don't have the opportunity to serve our nonprofit partners. And so in the spirit of still serving them and still having opportunities available for our employees to engage, we decided to move to a virtual program where we can start working now to pivot, to really give ourselves the time to make that change and to make that thoughtful change as well with our nonprofit partners. As you showed on your slides, they are going through significant changes as well, whether significant challenges or reductions. So we have to work with them now to understand those challenges, and knowing that the projects that we had scoped out, back at the end of 2019 are not the same projects anymore. So it really is a process that we figured if we start now and do it the right way now, we can be really successful at delivering something at the end of the year.
Great, really appreciate it, and thanks for correcting me. There's so much going on, and I think I got the locations a little mixed up.
Okay.
I appreciate that. One of the other questions, and I think this happens when, whether a company's looking to engage their employees or transition from an in-person employee day of service or transitioning a Go Pro Bono program from in-person to virtual, what were the kind of the key areas that you had to consider making this transition, right? There's obviously communications, there's talking to your stakeholders, there's resources. Can you give us some examples of what you had to go through?
Yeah, I mean, the big first thing was just making that big decision at first and having those internal discussions. Nothing's a unilateral decision. And so as a team, I have other team members that work with me, not just on the Global Pro Bono program, but on the other programs. We had to decide how we were handling each program, but also as a collective, all of our in-person programs, and make sure that we were making the right decision for all of them. So there was a lot of internal discussion. And then there was the communication to our team members who had raised their hand to say that they wanted to participate. And, a lot of them were disappointed. They were really looking forward to going and helping out these organizations, not just because of the locations, but the causes they were so passionate about. And so we had to communicate to them, and then also to our nonprofit partners to let them know what was going on and the reasons why. And I think, in light of things, everyone was pretty clear in understanding why we're doing that. And so the next step, as I mentioned, the first thing was to postpone, but the next step in going to virtual, we have to really think about what do we need to go virtual in terms of technology and capabilities. We also have to think about what is the timing that our employees have to really give it this, right now, and even the nonprofit partners. As we said, a lot of folks are working from home. A lot of our partners have seen reductions. What can they reasonably handle? What can our employees reasonably handle, knowing that they're working from home? They have home responsibilities, probably schooling kids at home, and so there's a lot to consider. So we had to communicate early. We surveyed our employees to ask them, okay, you signed up for these programs. Are you still available in September? Are you still interested? Same process with the nonprofit partners. So, the main thing with this is a lot of communication and, being open about our needs and our limitations as well. And some employees have written back saying, yes, they're still interested. They're still able to do it. And so we're really looking forward to getting those programs, moving and on the way. We're in the process of reaching out to the nonprofit partners now and rescoping their activities. Thankfully, 8 of the 12 partners have said yes, they're still interested. Unfortunately, there were some who said, hey, they're so overwhelmed right now that they can't accept participants. But we do look forward to still helping them next year because that's our commitment to them. So again, lots of communication with our internally amongst our team and stakeholders, but then also with the actual participants to get their buy-in for this as well, because without them, we couldn't make this happen.
Yeah, no, those are really great points. Communication and set expectations, whether there's a sleeping baby next door or a dog behind you, or you're teaching and you're, trying to wrangle everything at the same time. The new reality is that time is limited and distracted, right? So setting those expectations with your employees is great because maybe they can only do 2 to 5 hours a week over 6 to 8 weeks when the original program was full weeks on the ground. So that's this great expectation, and we're not forcing this same project in a virtual context, right? So communicating expectations with the organizations of what's changed, what do you really need now, and having that partnership conversation to adjust the scope of work to what can be done virtually, right? Which is, I think, is great.
Yep.
My other question is, what advice would you give to other companies, whether on this call or in general? If they had an in-person program, how would they start a virtual program, or how would they start a virtual program from scratch?
Yeah, so I would say, thankfully, we've been very blessed that we've had different program models and have worked on virtual programs in the past. So our pivot has been quite a bit easier. But I would say that the main thing to really think about is, with a virtual model, it really gives you the opportunity to engage so many more employees across different regions and locations, but then also across a whole host of other functions. Employees who might not have been able to step away for these in-person programs are now available because travel is not required or the time commitment isn't so demanding. So really think of the model that you want to employ. Think about what time employees have, because these virtual models can be anywhere from a half day or a 1-day scoping session, or kind of what we call the hackathon models, or they can really extend to several weeks or a period of several months. So again, think about the timing that employees have to give, but really talk to the nonprofit partners as well to understand what their needs are and how they can accommodate your employees. So it's really that balancing act of what everyone can accommodate. So really have those conversations up front before making a decision on the model that you'll put together. You know, the other thing that's extremely important with these virtual models, again, is just the technology. We discovered early on when we were doing our virtual programs that, you know, let's say, you know, across the US, we use Skype for Business. That works very well for us, but internationally it wasn't working as well. So maybe, you know, investing in Zoom or other technologies was important depending on the regions. You know, stable internet connectivity is extremely important. So you have those fine details to consider as well. And then the other things I would say is, you know, when you're in an in-person model, we take the time, you know, people work together, they get to know each other. In these virtual models, it's a little anonymous. So making sure you have that capability of turning on cameras, but even before the projects start, give time for the teams to get to know each other. So they can start building that bond and that relationship ahead of time, that cohesiveness, because a lot of different working styles. You know, we go through the same thing with our in-person programs. Before everyone kind of arrives on the ground, we do a lot of that team building and getting to know you process. You know, I would suggest that's even more important through the virtual program. And then really setting clear expectations and deliverables that, you know, folks know exactly what's required of them, and make sure that the scope of work is manageable and very clear, because you know, we do have more limited time with these virtual programs, if folks working, you know, less hours on it. And so, you know, I would say the scope of work is critically important as well, and managing that, making sure that you don't have to sift through documents that are on site. You know, you can't do that. And so, you know, what is really manageable as a virtual program. So there are a lot of things to consider, but fortunately, virtual programs do offer you a lot of flexibility in time and in models. So really think about what works best for you and your employees.
Great, appreciate that. Yeah, I think Rene will get more into the many models that we've seen, but I think you hit it. What works for you, the company? So I know a lot of companies have a portfolio of activities for the employees, and they could be looking at, you know, getting deep in-depth type engagements with organizations where they have, you know, lower number of staff going in deep, or a larger number of staff, you know, with you know, more of a high level approach, whether it's through clinics and one in a day. So yeah, we I think doing what works for you is best, and there's no one, you know, fits all type of scenario. My final question, and we'll move on, kind of goes around, you know, the data that we were referencing before. Organizations still need help. From your perspective, Jasenia, what is the impact of J&J, you know, Johnson & Johnson didn't move forward with the program this year, if you postponed and didn't pivot in this new environment?
Yeah, you know, I think it's hugely important to keep that spirit of volunteerism alive. And my manager, you know, like to tell us and remind us through the beginning of this is that we don't want to go dark. We don't want, you know, everyone to kind of just stop what they're doing and go dark, and there is no volunteerism, because the reality is that there is still a need out there, and if anything, the need might be greater now than it was before. So I think the important thing for us is to really remain positive and be creative about how we go about with solutions. And so ultimately, I think we would have been doing a disservice to our partners and also to our employees if we did not offer them these opportunities, because I will say we all need a pick-me-up these days, and there's nothing better than giving back to organizations. But I think the important thing again is, you know, as you saw in the data, the needs are different. They might you know, say, hey, there's a need for more money now, or, you know, changing product or service delivery. And so, you know, I would say, especially at a time like now, really talk to your partners really clearly and ask them, what do they need from big to small. It doesn't have to be a huge pro bono project. Their needs can be, you know, a lot simpler just based on the needs within their communities as well. And so one thing that we did is we have a platform where we enter opportunities for our employees to go and sign up for projects and different volunteer opportunities. We actually opened up a function within that platform, you can call it, where our NGO partners can actually enter projects for employees to sign up. And so we sent out an email to our nonprofit partners saying, hey, you know, do you have a project that our employees can help engage with that's virtual in nature? And if so, you know, please submit for, you know, for our employees to consider. And it's amazing to see the multitude of projects and the types of projects that came in. There are different things from just inspirational notes going to hospitals and patients. There are things such as, you know, virtual bedtime stories and music so that kids who are at home and might not be getting that stimulation can get that. There's so much that we can do, again, big and small, that you know, can really benefit communities and benefit our partners so that they can continue to help out you know, the members within their community. So I think for us, you know, it's important to keep our employees engaged. They're super excited. I saw this morning on a news announcement that we get that we had one employee who rallied family, friends, and colleagues to sew 1,000 masks. You know, this is something that, you know, some of these folks didn't have sewing skills before. They didn't have sewing machines, but they went out and bought them. So a lot that folks can still do from home. And I think the main thing, again, is knowing that just because we're at home, the need doesn't stop, and there's still so much we can do. So again, it kind of goes back to that idea of, you know, having lots of different opportunities available. Making sure that we're still keeping up with the needs of our partners, keeping that communication flow going, and reminding our employees on a regular basis that the need is there. And so that's something that we as a team are doing through our internal communications channels every day, every couple of days, posting new things, keeping them aware, whether it's fundraising, you know, whether it's projects within local communities, and obviously keeping alive our bigger pro bono projects. Again, we're making sure that we're keeping to our commitment of serving our nonprofit partners and engaging our employees as well. So it's been great. You know, like I said, our employees are still interested in participating in all of our programs. There are some that were virtual already and they're still going. And there are some that were in person, and folks still said, hey, you know, they're still interested to participate virtually. So again, just keep those lines of communication open, understand what the changing needs are. And then I think we can all be successful in this, and it can be a win-win for all.
Great, I really appreciate that. I love the term, don't go dark, right?
Yeah.
There's a need out there, and taking advantage of the enormous or increased employee motivation to do something. We've seen that quite a bit in our conversation. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate your time, Jasenia, and your insight. Again, if people have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. Just a quick plug, we have 93 plus participants on the call at the moment. So it's great to see a lot of people on, and we welcome your questions as well. So thank you again, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Gavin and Jasenia. What a wonderful conversation. Hello, everyone. My name is Rene Lo Perez. As Gavin mentioned at the outset, work in program innovation at Pixar Global. Super excited to be part of this conversation today, and thrilled again, Gavin and Jasenia. Thank you for the first half. Very informative. Jasenia, thank you for allowing us to peek behind the curtain to better understand some of the considerations and even tough conversations that you and the team at Johnson & Johnson are having. Something that you said that just resonated with me was, just because we're at home doesn't mean that the needs stop. I invite everyone on the call to kind of chew on that for a bit. because I would also add, in fact, the needs grow. And I think we're starting to see that. So I bet several of you from the corporate space on the call resonate with what Jasenia has shared and can identify with what some of the things that Johnson & Johnson are grappling with and what they're navigating. So to that end, we do have another poll. I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to learn more about what you're grappling with. So as you see on the screen, invite you to answer the question, what are some of the top obstacles that you face as you try and sustain or reimagine your social impact programs? So this is for our friends who work within companies. What are you dealing with? Is it senior leadership support? Is it repurposed budgets? Is it new social impact priorities? Or is it decreased morale and employee engagement in these trying times? So I'll give you a second to answer that. Please select one. I'm sure it's going to be tough to select just one. If you feel the need to do more, feel free to add it in the question function, just so that we can better understand what are some of the tough conversations that you're having and tough decisions that you're being forced to make. So I think in a second, we'll start to see some of the responses come through. Great, thank you. So we see there 6% senior leadership support, repurposed budgets, tied with new social impact priorities. Very interesting. And then a strong second, decreased morale and employee engagement. I'm sure that's something, if you or your employees are anything like the rest of us, we're experiencing virtual fatigue, Zoom fatigue, and even questions and wondering what's happening in the world. And so that certainly does affect how employees show up to work, and it's something that's important to acknowledge. But we assume and we hope that through virtual programming and allowing folks to be able to give their skills back and contribute to others who are having some tough times does boost morale and engagement. So great, thank you for those responses. Do want to quickly acknowledge that it's a bit beyond the scope of this conversation regarding the financial obstacles or some of the leadership buy-in piece, but I think we'll be able to touch on some of the other pieces in the rest of the conversation. So with that said, let's take a look at some of the virtual program models that we've developed over the years and that we're finding more timely now than ever. Before I dive into what those models look like with illustrations from some of our current partners, I want to highlight that in addition to helping you imagine what some of your social impact, employee engagement, talent development, volunteerism, and etc. programs can look like, equally important, I think one of the things I'd like to drive home here is the type of impact that could be made through virtual programs. As we saw at the outset, nonprofits are, their needs are increasing. And a lot of what those needs are can be addressed through virtual programs. So in addition to simply engaging employees, let's also keep line of sight on the other side of it, and that's the impact that these programs have. So what you see on your screen now is just a quick sampling of the types of programs that we have implemented through some of our existing corporate partnerships. Again, keep in mind that these are merely examples of what has worked with some of our clients. And note that we do have the ability to plug and play some of these models, especially for those of you who might be interested in immediate activity. But then we also have the ability to adapt and adjust and work with you to develop an approach, as Jasenia said, that works for your company, something that's appropriate for your culture, for your abilities, for the skills of your employees, and even for those ever-changing social impact priorities. All right, let's dive in. So the first one you'll see here is the virtual and hybrid model. I think one of the things to highlight is that all of these models allow for employees from various geographies to participate and utilize their skills in support of organizations, also from various geographies or those within their own communities. So these two here, the virtual and hybrid, these are probably the most flexible corporate-driven models, meaning they can vary in length, they vary in types of skills, they vary in types of focal points, and in terms of time that employees are asked to commit to the project. For the hybrid one in particular, want to highlight that it starts out virtual and then it allows for the immersive in-person component at the end of it when things do open up. And I know some of you on the call are probably having to reimagine, what your immersive programs look like, and you don't want to lose that human-to-human immersive element that the experience that employees get when they're sitting side by side in a new environment, side by side the nonprofit partners. So the hybrid model allows for activities to start now, and then the in-person piece to remain at the end when things do open up. So in practice, with JPMC, one of our partners that we've executed this program with, the virtual model has allowed the firm's employees to work with an education-based organization in a country in Africa to do some financial modeling in order to reduce costs and increase access to education. Some of the deliverables were models, dashboards, and some of the skills that were engaged were in accounting, research, strategy development. So just wanted to highlight here that, again, it's a diverse skill set coming together to do some pretty meaty work virtually, with the organization that allows them to unlock resources and education for rural community members. So pretty powerful work. Looking at the next model, we have the Impact Challenge. And so this one, you see me get excited here. This one is a little fun. I like competition. So this one is more competition-esque. And it's a model where employees actually work together on diverse teams on a challenge statement. So it's one problem or one big, bold, audacious statement developed in partnership with the nonprofit partner or the community-based organization. And then the employees work together on teams to develop solutions for this one challenge statement. So they're competing against each other to kind of see who can come up with the most innovative, creative, yet sustainable and implementable solution to what the organization is facing. At the end, there's a panel of judges, both from your organization or from the nonprofit partner and other stakeholders from the community to basically select which solution, I'm sure, and they're usually all great, but select which solution might be the best for that organization moving forward. Here, this one, it's nice because it allows you to engage larger sets of employees. So you see up to 30 employees or more, depending on the number of challenge statements and then the number of organizations to work with. But this one is, it's pretty unique in that sense. And then after me, a little quick plug, after me, Gavin will speak about an exciting announcement that we have as it relates to our Impact Challenge model. So for this program, in practice, we have partnered with BlackRock. And here, employees have leveraged some of their market analysis skills, some of their customer service skills, some of their product research skills to develop a customer journey map that has allowed rural villagers to have greater access to financial tools to improve their financial literacy and standing. So pretty fun here, pretty unique and creative. And again, it was a competition. So there was a winner at the end. And then support was unlocked to allow the solution to be implemented. For the next model, we have the employee-driven model. This too is an exciting model because it allows employees to actually select the nonprofits that they are passionate about, select the organizations that they would like to partner with, and then work together with them to develop the projects. So here, there's a bit of an empowerment piece. So when we think about, employees might be feeling a little disconnected now, morale might be a little low. This really allows employees to engage on things that they are excited about, that they are passionate about in their own community. And here we actually equip the employees with tools to be able to do that so that they are ensuring that the support that they're providing is needed, it's effective and efficient, and that they're leveraging their skills in the best ways that are appropriate to the needs of the organization. And again, here there's flexibility in terms of geography and duration, and even the amount of support that employees can receive. So in practice, for this model, we have worked with Anglo American. Here, employees have leveraged their human resources and talent development skills to create mentorship resources and workshops for migrant entrepreneurs and in a geography where migrant youth population was projected to grow. It looks like my slides might be a little bit behind me, but if we can't catch up to them, we'll be sure to send them out to you afterwards. And then lastly, I'm going to speak about the virtual clinic model. And this one is really good for shorter term, quicker hit projects and engagement opportunities. These ones are the ones where deliverables are pretty much done in a day. It might involve mentorship. It might involve guidance to leadership. It's really a great approach for employees who might have very limited time to engage their skills, but have expertise to share. Especially as nonprofits seek to navigate some of the new waters that they're in now. So again, these are kind of short-term, done in a day, can be team-based, but really allow folks to engage quickly and then are able to move on. And lastly, before I turn it back over to Gavin, I just wanted to quickly recap some of the values or benefits of virtual pro bono programs. Excuse me. Quickly, just a reminder that they're scalable. They have the ability to accommodate various numbers of participants, host organizations, and community served. They're flexible. They allow you to quickly harness the passion of employees to address immediate community needs without participants being required to travel or spend a lot of time away from their primary responsibilities, either home or at work. They're sustainable, which is critical now, especially as we navigate these new times. A lot of the programs that we are working with our partners are meant to last. These are not meant to be kind of one and done, programs. These are something that are meant to be sustained over time, and they're low lift, so low level of resources required from your side. They're customizable, meaning they're easily integratable within the company's priority areas and abilities and ever-changing priorities and abilities. So it really does allow for flexibility and fluidity as priorities continue to compete and change. They're adaptable, so without the need to travel, virtual programs are able to reach smaller markets and kind of those hard to reach places where travel might prohibit, both from a cost standpoint and even a safety standpoint. So they allow for communities that are in need around the world to receive the support that they might not otherwise have access to. And lastly, they're relevant. So now more than ever, there's a need to assist the organizations on the front lines, both those affected by COVID-19 directly and those who are feeling the implications indirectly. So now is the time, as Jasenia said, now is the time. The needs don't stop. In fact, they're only growing. So I will pause here and I'll turn it back over to Gavin, who's going to share some of the exciting news that I mentioned about the Impact Challenge.
Thank you, Renee. Really appreciate that. Thanks for that overview there. And again, please send those questions through. We're going to address those at the end of the session as well. It looks like we have a little bit of a tech issue. Our slides might be stuck, but I believe the handout has been posted in the GoToWebinar handouts function. So if you're not able to see the slides that I'm talking about, feel free to click on the handout function and you can see our exciting information. So I'm going to pivot, as we have been saying many times during our new reality and tech challenges and so on. I'm really excited, as Renee mentioned, to have the opportunity to announce some of our new challenge initiatives. There are a series of challenges where we will be engaging virtually corporate employees to create bold solutions to address the limitations in various systems surfaced by COVID-19. Teams of employees across companies will compete to provide the most innovative solutions to challenges facing organizations on the front lines today and throughout the recovery. As Renee mentioned, this is very similar to the BlackRock model. One such challenge, I would like to reach out and please, again, contact us if you're interested or require more information, is the Community Health Center Tech Challenge, where we are currently working with the Iowa Primary Care Association on the working theme of how might we accelerate health service delivery, reimagining the integration of technology into community health systems. We are also currently coordinating and in discussions with the National Association of Community Health Centers on other such challenges related to community health centers. I would also like to mention some of our premier sponsors that are making this challenge a reality. SAP and the Medtronic Foundation, where they are providing some support funding and also engaging their employees in this specific challenge. Another challenge that is also in development is around resilient cities, shifting the paradigm of urban recovery. Some of the working themes that we are discussing is, in the aftermath of COVID-19, how can the transition to a circular economy be a driver for inclusive economic recovery? How might we shift to alternative energy as a catalyst for economic recovery post-COVID-19? So stay tuned for more on that. Please reach out if you have any questions. And then, similar to the BlackRock Challenge, everything is designed, tailored based on the needs of our corporations and what they want to achieve. We are able to design a custom challenge around social issues material to your organization. These challenges could be multi-company or individual corporate models. They can be focused on specific regions, work with specific offices, and engage a number of employees in this challenge where we provide solutions. And there's also opportunities to implement those solutions. So again, reach out to Pixar Global. We would love to talk to you if you have any interests or ideas and so on. I think we're on our last slide here. If you have any questions, please post them up in the chat. I believe we do have some time left, so I'm going to open it up. I believe Rene will be covering some of the questions throughout the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Yep, thank you, Gavin. And I invite you to stay on as well because we have quite a few questions. So forgive me if I'm leaning over here to the side. That's where I'm trying to squint to see the small print in the chat function. Let me see here. A lot of great questions. Thank you, everyone. One of the ones I see is, how does Pixar Global and your partners anticipate supporting community-based organizations with human capital and direct service delivery? As organizations get back into place-based work, the need to sustain existing programs with human capital is vital, as community-based organizations are losing local volunteers, interns, and fellows due to circumstances. That's a great question. And I'd say it's a multifaceted question and approach. One of the things that we do first is work with the organizations to understand their capacity to be able to absorb the support. One of the things that we make sure not to do is to disrupt any of the work that's happening, especially now in light of a crisis. Folks are in the process of rebuilding, ensuring that their doors stay open, ensuring that they are able to serve their community members in the best way possible. So we don't want to be disruptive in that. And there is a transition period. So after we understand, that they have the capacity and are able to support, we work with them to understand what the skills that are needed, and then work with our corporate partners to unlock the skills that they have to make the connection and build the projects. So largely in this, it would be HR, it would be, talent development professionals, folks who work in the community side, how do you engage more volunteers, interns, that kind of thing. So it's again, matching the skills to the need in an intentional way. Let's see, another question we have here is, what types of new projects, sorry, just had a little tech error there. What types of new projects are you seeing as manageable projects that could be done in a half day or 1 day? Another great question. A lot of what we're hearing from some of the community-based organizations are questions like, and this is more suited for mentoring and kind of guidance and kind of approaching new ways of thinking about problems, and that's how do we re-engage our volunteers? You know, how do we think about ramping up our programs or reaching, you know, our audience in new and unique ways? For the latter, sometimes it's about social media. It's about, you know, how to quickly pivot to reach your audience and transition some of your programs. A lot of what we're hearing, quite frankly, are things that our private sector partners do on a daily and don't even realize how valuable it is. So, you know, community-based organizations have said, you know, we have had to quickly pivot to, you know, remote working. We've never done remote working before. What are some best practices? How do we keep our employees engaged? How do we keep our, you know, our stakeholders engaged? And so it's things that, you know, companies do on a daily, you know, that it's that expertise, that knowledge, those experiences that you exercise on a daily that is actually beneficial to nonprofit organizations who might be experiencing this for the first time. Great, I'm gonna jump down some more questions. So sorry.
Any questions for Jasenia while she's on, or
yeah,
are you seeing anything there?
Let's see. Sorry, the chat function is very tiny.
And while you look, Rene, one of the things that we also found in our research out to the hundreds of organizations and 100+ replies we received is that they're actually surprised by their ability to pivot, right? So they're actually doing better than they thought they were in such a challenging situation. But that assistance is still there, but they are finding innovative ways to change our services. One example is, you know, we've worked with a number of food banks in Latin America. You know, how do they, you know, some of the bigger challenges, how do they gather, communicate, distribute food in such a time and mostly in a virtual environment? So they've, you know, pivoted to, you know, coordinating with volunteers on how to communicate out, find those in need, how to, you know, increase donations in such a tough time where, you know, everyone's in need. So there's a lot of innovation and new ideas, and I don't think Pixar Global is, or any other organization is immune to that. I think it's forcing us to adapt, innovate, and change.
Yeah. So another question that we have here is, we want to develop a program, but we're not sure if now is the right time. Should we wait until things reopen? Is there a better time to think about it? And that's a really good question, and one that we get often. Our recommendation is now is actually the right time to start designing, imagining what the program could look like, whether it be virtual or immersive. And of course, we're happy to work with you as you start to engage multiple stakeholders and imagine what the program could look like. And the reason why we say now is the right time is because when things do open up, that's when you would want to be ready to hit the ground running, to plug and play and get to work. If you wait, then you're losing a lot of time in the preparation and the stakeholder management and engagement. And even in, you know, as your priority shift and imagining what a program could look like to meet those priorities. So now is the good time to get started. Another question we have here is, we had planned a large day of service with employees from across all of our global offices. Is there any way to have a unified but virtual approach? Another great question, and I'm sure many of you are grappling with that as well. Creating a virtual program that engages a global employee base. I'm sure it seems very overwhelming, but it's absolutely something to start now, and it's something that we can assist with. We have a broad swath of community-based organizations, social impact organizations from across the globe that, as you saw from the survey results, are on the ready, they're on standby, and they're ready, willing, and able to receive some of the support. So we can work with you to unlock some of your talent to be able to work with them on a global basis and on a cohesive basis as well. And it could be certainly something that's contained in a short amount of time. So happy to work with you on that. And looks like one more question here. Do you have any advice on pivoting our approach to CSR in light of the COVID-19 crisis? And I think that's a big one. And I think as we saw from some of your survey results, that priorities again are changing. And so are your strategies. So I think one of the pieces of advice here is one to acknowledge, that the COVID-19 has disrupted not only how we work and volunteer, but also, again, our plans and strategies and some of our long settled goals that might have already been in place. So we've been working with a bunch of companies in an advisory capacity on how you might be able to reach some of those goals. So happy to work with you to develop a cohesive approach, one that can weather the storm, but also accounts for changing priorities and is sensitive to not only the corporate goals and corporate needs, but then those of your employees and the customers within your footprint. So happy to work with you on that and acknowledging and addressing that, yes, it is something that needs to be considered. Let's see. Gavin, I'm going to toss a question to you that came in.
I was waiting for it.
Not going to get off that easy.
Yeah, shoot.
How can you help corporate employees understand the value of the impact work they're doing virtually if they can't see the impact themselves?
Great question. Impact's always measuring and telling the story around the impact is always a interesting and exciting conversation. Obviously the experience is different when you're doing virtually. We've taken an approach with some of our clients in those virtual assignments of, whether there's surveys afterwards, analyzing those surveys, but doing focus group conversations, understanding what the impact was on the organization and the experience for the participants. And we see a lot of the time that volunteers stay connected because they do want to see the impact, right? They want to continue to help. They want to be available to answer that, hey, you put this business plan or strategy together, have a quick question. Our reality has changed. What are your thoughts there? So we are seeing that they are staying connected, but we do work with a lot of our corporate partners, and we know others that we don't work with. They do survey. They tell some great stories around it through story sharing, articles, videos to really visualize the impact. I think we probably are out of time for questions, but it's great. We will look at those questions and in our follow-up try to provide some answers to those. But I want to give one last plug for the Community Health Tech Challenges. If you're interested, please reach out. Again, we are working with the Iowa Primary Care Association on health service delivery as a pilot, but it's something that we will be hopefully the results and solutions is something that they can roll out nationally as well. So it has a greater impact across the country. Where we're at on time, a minute early, we will give that back to everyone. I appreciate it. I thank everyone for letting us into their household, for their engagement and the series of questions. And we will be sending out the recording, the slides, and some of the results from the poll and questions. Thank you again, everyone. You have a great day.